Hello, this is Joe from Nerd in Korea. We are doing our deck check-in again, and this time we're talking about Uril the Miststalker. This one is a lot more budget than ours usually are, or at least these ones usually are. This is kind of a budget channel, so I like doing these. Also, doing suggestions is much easier for me when it's like budget, because I'm not like competing against more pricey cards. I really want to build this guy actually. I probably will do a budget build for this. Anyway. Okay, so again, yeah, we are reviewing decks, and today it is Uril, not Yuri. I thought I fixed that. The Miststalker, and again, this is an Enchantment Voltron, which is not your standard Voltron. I think usually when people think Voltron, they think equipment decks. So this is an unusual one, but it's quite powerful. Again, he is 2 red, green, white. Again, that's Naya. I'm going to say the line later. He is hexproof. Okay, that hexproof on a commander is something that we're going to talk about. And he gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to him, or it. I think he's supposed to be a male, but I don't know. Anyway, +2/+2 for each aura. Adds up fast. Starts out as a 5/5 even, so yeah. Okay, so this deck is, as I said, a lot more budget than I usually cover here, on this at least. The deck price is $60.05, so just over $60. Once again, this is an actual deck. Someone has this deck, they play with it. It's not just an online thing, although I do have a link for the online thing, but it's not only online. So this is much more budget deck than I usually cover, as I said, which is nice to have once in a while. I do like doing the budget ones. I mean, the high price ones are cool to look at and see how they kind of tick, but yeah. Okay, so this is a Naya commander. So as usual, I will say you should play, I will say that you should play this so that you, if anyone asks about it, you can just say Naya business, which is the best joke ever. I've used that too many times. Anyway, yeah. So again, green, red, white is called Naya. So Naya business. Anyway, terrible. While Voltron decks often rely on equipment, he makes a lot of use out of auras. Okay, so he's going to like get really big, really fast out of auras, and the real advantage there is that you can the really low cost equipment. You're paying for the equipment, you're paying the equip cost, and then it's good to go. With this, if the creature, goes to the graveyard, I don't want to use the D word on YouTube anymore, but if he gets destroyed, let's say, by whatever means, then those also go to the graveyard with the creature, right? There's the downside right there. The upside is that you're not doing like a 2-part payment thing. Really, my equipment deck is great because it does skip over the whole like equipment, having to pay equipment cost. If you're going to play an equipment deck, play that. Anyway, I'm going to talk about that later. Again, Uril the Miststalker, so having hexproof built in on your commander is a big help. This is actually a huge thing. Again, Shroud, I think, is just straight up worse than hexproof, right? You can cast things other people can't. Hexproof is just so much better. Even equipment and, putting auras on it and everything. If it has Shroud, you can't do that. Hexproof, no problem. So, he not only protects it not only protects your commander, but sends a lot of removal that would be hit it elsewhere. So people are probably going to be like, oh, I want to use this removal on a commander. Yours might be number 1 on their list because it's like a Voltron commander, but they can't target it, so they just target someone else. This is so much better on a commander than just regular hexproof, because it's like, if you want to take my commander out, you pretty much have to use a board wipe, not targeted removal. Huge advantage, first of all. Secondly, all that targeted removal that would go to your commander is going to probably to someone else's commander, right? This is kind of like deflecting, not even like just preventing to you, it's deflecting to other people. Anyway. Yeah, getting a bump to attack and toughness for each aura can multiply the bonuses of auras very quickly. Remember, most auras are going to have like an attack and toughness bonus. This is going to give it an extra +2/+2 for each one. He's starting as a 5/5. Alright, so you even put a +1/+1 aura on it. It's a very low cost, nice one. That's +3/+3. So he's an 8/8 with hexproof already. Not to mention whatever else the aura does. Just piles on very quickly. Naya is also an interesting color with a lot of auras that people may not be used to having to deal with. So having this color combination helps a lot too. Even white auras, I think people are more used to seeing. You're going to catch people off guard with like the red and green auras more, I think. Well, maybe not green. Green does like its enchantments, but the kind of combination there is something people might not know how to react to at first. So the first couple times playing against this commander, I think it's going to be hard to even really, your decision making is going to be, or your opponent's decision making is going to be a lot harder. So star cards, this deck looks for low CMC enchantments to get a big boost out to the commander to start taking out other players. Anything, you know, any really cheap enchantment, or aura I should say, cheap aura usually isn't going to be that big of a deal. In this, because he gets the +2/+2, just amplifies any bonuses. It makes those low cost ones that usually are maybe not the best into incredible assets to have. A 5 casting cost is no joke, so you do need some help getting the ramp out quickly, right? You gotta ramp up to get them out quickly, and yeah. That's something I think this deck is very good at. Maybe even more good at than it needs to be at some places, I think. But again, we're gonna get there. Oh, also my son is here, because it's we're getting into late afternoon. I tried to distract him with some dried mango. He burned through that almost immediately. So we're gonna see. Hopefully, we don't get any major interruptions. He's on the computer now, so hopefully he keeps himself to himself. Okay, Enchantment Synergy. Transcendent Envoy. This is a 2/1 for 2 aura spells you cast costs 1 less to cast. Reducing the enchantment cost is huge, especially when you're already dealing with low CMC ones. You can reduce a lot that are maybe like 1 or red to just a red. You're going to be dropping those like very, very quickly. And remember, they might only be +1/+1 on your commander. They're +3/+3. Just huge. Anyway, the flyer is kind of the main selling point for me on there. I could see going Dranatha instead, but she doesn't have flying. She has a bunch of other stuff. Okay, Jukai Naturalist. Lifelink and enchantment spells cost 1 less to cast. Once again, that cost reduction is very big, and has lifelink, which is nice. I do like that he is, a 2/2 instead of a 1/2. Flying is still better. All that glitters. Okay, enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. Each. Not aura, enchantment, and artifact. This is going to pile a whole bunch of extra ones on, right? Even your mana rocks are going to be increasing the attack bonus for this. This is great because, you're not really about artifacts in this deck, but you're going to have them, you're going to play them. You might as well get extra value, right? So it's kind of double synergy there, which I always love to see. Ethereal Armor. Enchanted creature once again gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control and has first strike. This is another important distinction. Each enchantment, so there are enchantments that aren't auras in this deck. This is still going to count those to get a +1/+1, and it's you control. You don't have to, even like aura curses kind of thing that you put on other players, it would still count those because you are considered to control them. Alright? Ancestral Mask. Alright, enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. This is crazy. This is just doubling your commander's ability, and again, it's any enchantment, including auras, and it includes auras that aren't equipped to that creature. So it's kind of better than what your commander is built with, but is going to like at least double his bonuses there. Just a insane card to have in this deck, and with some cost reduction, it's going to like be maybe even 1 green, right? If you have Jukai and Envoy on the battlefield at the same time and you want to cast this, 1 green to just like give a massive boost to your commander. Insane. Card draw. Alright, Core Spirit Dancer gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, so it kind of is double of your commander. This is always nice to have as a fallback, and whenever you cast an aura spell, you may draw a card. Card draw is always great, but you may draw. If you have too many cards you don't want to discard, you can just leave it. You don't have to. You don't end up like milling yourself out with this card, basically. Yeah, for only 2, she's a 0/2 at the beginning, so that's not great, but it's, boosts up very quickly. Sithis, God of Harvest, once again, draw a card and gain 1 life every time you cast an enchantment. It is not limited to aura. And then, this is cast enchantment, draw a card. SRAM, we love SRAM. In aura, equipment, or vehicle, draw a card. Mesa Enchantress, again, you may draw a card. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you may draw a card. Even if you have like 2 of these on the battlefield, that's your card draw sorted for the time. You probably don't want all of them out at the same time, because you can draw too many cards and like mill yourself, right? If you start like really casting a bunch of enchantments and all 5 of these are out, you're gonna like end up drawing more cards than you really want at the time. So card draw is great, but you know, it is 5 cards in 100. So yeah, that's kind of an upshot side there. We do have other card draw options as well. So yeah, having 2 of these on the battlefield at a time, I think is a realistic expectation. My favorites. Okay, this is a thing I'm kind of adding because before I would always like try to find some justification to talk about specific cards and like make it make sense. Kind of, it's like, well, why don't I just say it's my favorite? Yeah, I just might as well say it. Sajiri's Shelter. Okay, this is one of those double-sided land on the other side, so it comes in tapped and it can tap for only a white. Target creature you control gains protection from color of your choice until end of turn. Especially with like a Voltron type commander. This is just a win con, right? You can just give them protection from whatever color of creatures your opponent has, and then just like commander damage. They're out of the game. I guess it's a finisher, not a win con. Stomp Stomp. I love this one as well, partly because of the name, but anyway. It does flip over as a land. This is a dual land. I do love these double-sided dual land cards. I feel like it's almost broken, but so good. Again, it can tap for a red or a green, but it does come in tapped. Still, having that option is so huge. I am ordering all of these. Alright, so target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. Creature or planeswalker. It would be great if you could target a player directly, but this is like removal right here. Especially, I do like having planeswalker as a secondary option, because when those planeswalkers start getting out of hand, it's nice to have something just like knock them back under the... Don't want those ultimates going off. Shield of the Oversoul. I actually have this in a deck. I was just looking at it the other day and being like, wow, that's really good. Alright, so as long as enchanted creature is green, +1/+1 and indestructible, and if it's white, +1/+1 and flying. Your commander is white and green and red, right? So any creatures that have multiple colors get both of these effects. So yeah, You're going to be giving your commander +2/+2 from the enchantment, flying, indestructible, and then because he has an aura, another +2/+2. So on your commander, this 3 mana enchantment is +4/+4, indestructible, flying. Yoy, yoy, oh boy, hexproof as well. Anyway, Stroke of Midnight. This is like, I thought this card was going to go. I got 2 of these and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky. This is going to be like a $10 card in no time. And nope, it's not yet. It is going to go up. Believe me, it is going to go up. Oh my. Destroy target non-land permanent. This is the phrase I love seeing more than anything on removal. Non-land permanent. So usually with a removal, I say you should focus on like enchantments and artifacts because you can't destroy them in battle through damage. And then, yeah. Creature is kind of last on my target removal list. This is just doesn't worry about it. This hits everything, right? It gives them a 1/1 white human. Kenrith's Transformation. So, when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Again, this is an enchantment. You are going to control it, so you get to count it for all of those things where it's like the number of enchantments you have on the battlefield. You do get to count this still. And yeah, with some cost reduction, it's going to be 1 green. This is, once again, better than most removal, especially against commanders, right? Other than exiling, I think is maybe better, but you can't really exile a commander. They're just going to put it back in the command zone. So yeah, enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green elk creature token with power and toughness 3/3. Most commander decks are all about the commander. This just locks their commander, right? It is just going to like shut their deck down a lot of times. Having this is an off switch for like probably about 50% of commander decks. I have decks where you could play this and I'd be like, okay, I can keep going, no problem. I have decks where I'd be like, oh no, game over. So it is somewhat situational, but with 3 opponents, you're going to see that situation. I would be shocked if you're in a commander game where all 3 of your opponents didn't really care what happened to their commander. That's not normal. The plan. So how does this deck play? Step 1, ramp, cost reduction. Almost always there's like ramp, cost reduction, mana fixing step 1 with pretty much every deck, right? Step 2, enchantments, shockingly. Step 3, win con. Okay. So the ramp and cost reduction. Avacyn's Pilgrims, we have a mana dork a green mana dork that can make white mana, so that's always nice. Jukai Naturalist, we already talked about, cost reduction. Spring Bloom Druid, so when it enters the battlefield, sacrifice a land. If you do, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield, tapped, then shuffle. What does this not say? This is one of those cards where you have to look at and say, oh, what does it not say? It does not say untapped, right? When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a land, not an untapped land, right? This isn't like a layer where you need to put something back into your hand and then it comes in tapped, and you're just losing mana that turn. You can tap it for mana, then cast this, and then sacrifice it, and then put 2 more lands in the battlefield. So next turn, you do have a ramp, right? This doesn't ramp that turn, it ramps next turn. But it's still really good. Stump Stomp, we already talked about, double-sided land. EDH on a budget, Tim from EDH on a budget, made a video talking about like how to manage your lands and do it better. And he's really good at all of this. I think he's very on ball. I'll try to put if I remember, I'll put a card up in the corner for that one, because it's definitely worth checking out. Like, I think he's very on point. Sky Shroud Claim. So yeah, search the library for 2 forest cards, put them on the battlefield, then shuffle. Okay, this costs 4, to get 2 out, which isn't bad. The main thing to point out here is that it says forest, right? Not basic land forest or basic forest, just forest. So if you've got a triome, you've got anything that says this deck does have lands that have like the land type. I think, what is it? It'd be forest and plains. It has dual lands with forest plains. You can go get that dual land and just throw it into the battlefield tapped. It does so much. Oh boy. Enchantments, okay. So Cartouche of Zeal. I feel like I'm saying cartouche. I know that's a French word, I'm saying it wrong. Anyway, 1 mana. You have this because it's 1 mana. And so, when it enters the battlefield, target creature can't block, so you're preventing something from blocking, which can be very useful. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has haste. Okay, so it's going to be +3/+3 in haste, remember? And something can't block. That's not huge, but it's nice. For 1 mana, worth it. Asha's Favor. This is 2 and a white, so getting more pricey, but it has flying, first strike, and vigilance. Okay, your commander has hexproof, but remember, this is going to be +2/+2, flying, first strike, and vigilance. That's getting, that's evasion. You can attack and not tap, and first strike. So if they do block, you're probably taking the blocker out and staying alive. Oh boy. Griff's Boon. So +1/+0 and flying for 1 white. Okay. But for 3 and a white, return to the battlefield from the graveyard and put it on a creature. So this is recursion. That's one thing I think this deck is a little weak on, is the recursion. I would like to add more recursion. I don't know where there's space for it though, so I'm not really helping. I'm just saying there's a problem. Now I know exactly what... Anyway, too late. Boar Umbra. Again, +3/+3 and totem armor. Okay, for 2 and a green, +3/+3. Remember, that's +5/+5. With a double strike, anything you can use for double strike or doubling power, that's going to turn into like commander damage pretty quick. Remember, you need 21, so you'd be just short of commander damage. You need 1 more of any kind of enchantment or aura on your commander to give it exactly what it needs with double strike to just like take one-shot people in the game. Totem armor. Totem armor is so huge in this, especially. The main downside, remember, of auras versus like equipment is that when the creature is destroyed by whatever means, I don't want to use the other D word, it goes to the graveyard and everything attached to it goes with it. Here, this says totem armor, this thing goes to the graveyard, that stays, and because that stays, everything else stays on top of it. It's just like, you spend all this time building up your commander, and if someone does use like a board wipe, because they can't use removal, they can't use target removal anyway, they do use a board wipe, this just goes instead of your commander. It's just crazy good. All that glitters. We talked about all that glitters already, but yeah, just really useful to keep in mind. Okay, and win con number 1. Okay, sorry about that. I had a little delay. There were people in the hallway by the elevator having a loud conversation. Anyway, Ancestral Mask. So +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. Basically doubling your commander's ability without the restriction of it being an aura attached to him. So yeah. Oh boy. Asha's Favor. Again, the flying first strike, vigilance. That evasion is so big on this, especially with first strike as well. Finally, Holy Strength. This isn't really about Holy Strength, it's about all these little, like, even Holy Strength and Ancestral Mask on it there. If they're the only 2 enchantments, alright, your commander's getting already +4/+4, and then +1/+2, so +5/+6, and then +9/+11. for 2 things. And then Asha's favor is going to make it plus 11, plus 13. And flying, first strike, vigilance. So you're just like turning into like a hammer pretty quickly. Already you're at the point where just any source of double strike, and there are a few in this deck, and it's just game over right there. Okay, win con number 2. So this is kind of looking once again at the combat, but win con number 1 is really commander damage, and this is just about combat. Core Spirit Dancer, and really just equipping Core Spirit Dancer with things like Benevolent Blessing, which you could also use for a win con 1. Enchanted creature has protection for the color of you from the chosen color. Okay, you choose a color, and you just make, give it protection from that color. Again, creatures of that color cannot block then. They can't interact in any way. So yeah, it's basically you're using it for the evasion, not the protection, really. And Ethereal Armor is once again a +1/+1 for each enchantment you control and first strike. Throwing first strike on again, not bad, but yeah, Ethereal Armor, even if you're using it on your commander, he already has first strike from something else. The extra enchantment is going to be at least +3/+3, and you probably have other enchantments out, so yeah, it's going to keep going up. Win con number 3. Okay, Slash the Ranks. I love Slash the Ranks. It's one of my favorites, especially in Commander. So this is a board wipe. Destroy all creatures and planeswalkers except for commanders. Whew. All that remember, you care more about your commander than other people do. Alright? Voltron commanders are more important than other commanders. Anyway, once again, all that glitters, just getting that attack boost. This is a win con where you're just like basically saying, okay, I'm gonna, my commander's going out and I'm just gonna like take out someone with the commander damage. So this is another commander damage one. Okay, oh, my son's here, as you can probably hear. Madcap skills, so enchanted creature gets +3/+0. I do love things with a higher damage boost or attack boost, because remember, this is +5/+2 and can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. Slash the Ranks. Everyone's down to only 1 creature, and you make it, basically you give them menace with this, right? So they're only going to have 1 creature, and you've got menace. Maybe Vigilant 2 for good measure, and that doesn't really matter, I guess, but still. And you just knock them out right there, right? Suggestions. Here I am looking for upgrade cards that serve the same established strategies, or some of the same established strategies, maybe not do the exact same thing, maybe kind of shift it more to one strategy or another. I think I keep it pretty consistent, but anyway. Using what I consider to be budget cards, $2 or less on TCG Player. Not a sponsor. Nope. Or at least a reduction in cost. Suggestion. Okay. This deck was built with budget in mind and done well. This deck was actually built by the same guy that did the Tiamat deck from the first episode, and what else did we cover by him? There's been more. Oh, the Lathril, right? Lathril and Tiamat, so yeah. The Tiamat one was like over $2,000, so he's not all 100% budget all the time, but yeah. He's flexible, I guess. I feel like I'm ready for recommendations for the budget deck. I talk about budget just 24/7 on this channel, so this I'm really in my wheelhouse, making suggestions for budget decks. Replaceable cards. Heliod's Pilgrim. This is a good card. I don't want to like hate on it or anything. I am saying replaceable. I'm not saying like this is any of these cards are terrible or anything, okay? These are what I think you could substitute. It does fetch out, it does basically tour out an aura for you, so it is very useful in this deck. It's very good, don't get me wrong, but I think we can do better. Cultivate. Cultivate's one I think was pretty prime, 5 years ago, and now they've kind of power curved how to cultivate, I think. Anyway, Llanowar Elves. There's a lot of mana dorks in here. Usually I probably wouldn't take Llanowar Elves out, but I think this is one of... I could think of 4 in here. There's the Llanowar Elves, Finhorn, Avacyn's Pilgrim, and then the Poison Tree Dart Frog. Was that it? Maybe. I don't recall right now. Commander's Sphere. Once again, good one, especially later in the game. That card draw. When it's very, very, very late game, the extra card is probably going to be worth more than the mana. So, yeah. That is something that kind of shifts throughout the game, right? At the beginning of the game, you've got 7 cards and you've got no mana, so mana value is very high, card value is low, and throughout the game it kind of changes, right? As you start running out of cards and keep needing to replace them, and you get more and more mana, you don't worry about mana as much as cards. So this is a nice thing to have, but once again, I feel like a little outpaced now. Swords of Plowshares. Okay, people might be surprised to see this one on here. It is good, but again, it's creature removal. It does exile, which is great. But yeah, removing 1 creature, I feel like we can find something better, right? So first of all, Heliod's Pilgrim. I would switch for Glory, which is actually recommended to me by the same guy that built this deck. So anyway, it is a higher mana cost, I think is the main downside, but it's a flyer, a 3/3 flyer, and when it's in, you want it in your graveyard. That's one thing I love about this one, is that you want it in the graveyard, so if someone's forcing you to discard this and be happy about it, right? If someone forces you to sacrifice a creature, sacrifice this, and be like, cool, great. If you have to, like, use a board wipe and you end up blowing up your own stuff, cool. I wanted it out there, Anyway, for 2 and a white, choose a color. Creatures you control gain protection from the color until end of turn. This protection from color is so huge, right? This is just like... You need to set this off once when someone's using target removal on one of your units or one of your creatures. Again, they can't use it on your commander, they can still hit anything else, but they're trying to take that pesky, card draw or cost reduction thing out, and you're just like, okay, pay 2 and a white, protection from that color. Basically, it's like a counterspell for targeted removal or any kind of targeted effect. It's going to shut it off. Also, it affects all of your creatures, right? In this way, it becomes kind of like a win con, where you just you want to get through, no problem. You're going to do this, and you're just going to say whatever color their creatures are, and then you do it. Some decks, like multicolored decks, where they have a whole bunch of different colored creatures, maybe this won't be too effective, but I think against a lot of like mono or dual colored decks, this will be a monster. Cultivate for Analyze the Pollen. The one thing in favor of Cultivate, it costs 3 versus 1, but one major thing is that it does go to the battlefield, right? Yeah, 1 goes to the battlefield, 1 goes to your hand, so it does get 2, and it's guaranteeing that 1 in hand. Analyze the Pollen is only 1 basic to hand, not to the battlefield, but also you can collect evidence 8. That means exile cards with total mana value 8 or greater from your graveyard. So if you've got a whole bunch of things in your graveyard, which you very well might do, the downside of having auras, right, is that they can end up in your graveyard whenever that creature dies. I'm trying not to say that word, the D word. Whenever that creature is destroyed, it will go to your graveyard with all of those enchantments. So there's going to be a whole bunch there right away.
You okay?
Yes, I'm okay, Mason. Okay, sweetie, please. Oh, my son's coming. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, you don't do that.
Okay. And, okay, here. It's this one, see? I don't think they speak Korean. Anyway, or some of them probably. I guess some watchers do speak Korean, but anyway. Okay, Mason. You can find a creature card instead of just a basic land. So yeah, this becomes a tutor for a creature, which in this deck is just very, very good, right? Yeah, card. Okay, Mason, buddy, please. Land of War Elves. I'm going to change that to Champion of Lamholt. Does not do the same thing, right? This is not a mana dork. This is a win con. I feel like this deck could use more win cons, and this is one of my go-to win cons, right?
So what?
So what? Win cons let you win the game, so that's good. Mason, Kate, buddy. So whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of Lamholt. Creatures with powers less than Champion of Lamholt's power can't block creatures you control. So again, you can use your auras. You don't have to rely on her +1/+1, right? Cast your auras on her, and she's gonna get big, and then all of your stuff is just unblockable to everyone else. Very mean little trick. Command Sphere, changing for Chromatic Lantern, right? Be able to tap any land for any color. Chromatic Lantern taps for any color like Command Sphere. It does not sacrifice for a card, but your mana fixing is done. Basically, with Chromatic Lantern, you've got all your mana fixing, you just need to worry about ramp then. Swords to Plowshares. 2, Winds of Wrath. Winds of Wrath, destroy all creatures that aren't enchanted. They can't be regenerated. Okay, so this is much more expensive, but it doesn't exile. It's much more expensive. It doesn't exile, but it's wiping out everything that isn't enchanted. All of your stuff probably is going to be enchanted. This is going to take out some of your own stuff, but it's going to be like your another win con there, right? So yeah, very, very good. More mana fixing. When I look at this, the kind of mana base is something. My son is being super distracting. The mana base is something I would work on a bit. So having things like, again, the Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, and Escape Tunnel, I feel like these are just staples in every deck now. Other than mono-colored deck. It's the only reason I wouldn't do it. I would even do this in dual-color decks. More synergy. Okay, Strength of the Harvest is the double-sided dual land that is from Modern Horizons 3, and this one gives that +1/+1 for each creature and or enchantment you control. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are 3 cards. That's true, Mason. Thank you. Okay, but yeah. So this is going to do that, counting enchantments and creatures. So yeah, kind of a nice bit of flexibility there. You do have things like Constellation, where you're going to be able to keep making Pegasi every time you cast enchantment. You're going to be putting a 2/2 Pegasus into the battlefield. When it's 1, it's Pegasus. 2 is Pegasi. Yeah. Anyway. Sage of Reverie. This is when you cast this, enters the battlefield. Draw a card for each aura you control that's attached to a creature. So each aura you have attached to a creature, doesn't care which creature, draw a card. This is going to be mass card draw. And it also has that +1/+1 for each aura you control that's attached to a creature. Again, not that creature, not the same creature, just any creature. The kind of flexibility this has over your commander's basic ability is just awesome. And Danitha. I had mentioned Danitha before. Aura and equipment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. It is 2 and a white, so it's a little more expensive than the other, or at least higher CMC. I gotta be more specific. Higher CMC than the other ones. I think they're both 2 CMC, but yeah. A little bit higher, but First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink. This is a creature that gives you reduction, and also you can just, like, if you want to pile the enchantments onto her, so to get the win, you can do that too. First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink are quite a scary combo. Okay, final thought. So this is a great commander to use for a budget deck. His unusual ability and color identity will make it harder for players to know what to expect. I definitely want to build one of these. I think this might be one of my budget deck techs. Commander damage can add up in one round fairly easily, negating the effect of those pesky life gain decks. Keep in mind that this does counter many decks. Voltron counters kind of life gain strategies. I think a lot of people love those life gain strategies, but maybe that's better in other things where they don't have commander damage. So yeah, really gets ugly fast. Anyway, take it easy.